This is the story of how one Bible verse changed my life forever. I was raised in a Christian home with high morals and values. We attended church every Sunday, and we even prayed before eating. But when it came to helping others, I couldn't have cared less. I would pass by homeless people on the street and ignore them. And if someone asked me for money, I would just keep walking. Helping others wasn't in my DNA. I didn't know it then, but everything would change when my mom showed me a Bible verse that changed my perspective on life forever. It was a Wednesday afternoon. My mom called me into her office where she worked as an accountant. "Robert," she said to me, "there's something I want to show you." She opened her Bible and read James 31:27. "Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world." Mom closed the Bible and looked at me. "Do you see that, Robert?" she asked. I nodded my head. That verse tells us to look after orphans, not just any orphans, but orphans who are in their distress. The Bible says so right there. Mom pointed out the word distress so I couldn't miss it. "You know, Robert, we're blessed enough that we can help those in need, so why don't you start helping orphans? Why don't you adopt one?" At first, I thought I could do that. Then reality hit me. "Mom, we already have a full house. Where would they sleep? We can barely afford to buy food for ourselves, let alone for another person." Mom knew what I was thinking, so she cut me off. "Robert, I know you don't think you can do it now, but you will one day. When that time comes, don't forget this Bible verse. Remember what it says about looking after orphans." And with that, Mom went back to work. I went back to my room, but I couldn't focus on my schoolwork. I kept thinking about what Mom had told me. Could I really help orphans one day? If I could, which ones would I choose? How many could I take care of? That night during dinner, we prayed like we always did. After we finished eating, I excused myself from the table because I wanted to pray silently. As soon as I was alone, I cried out to God. "God, I want to help orphans, but I'm not sure I can do it. Please show me how I can do it and when." I prayed that prayer every night for weeks, but I never received an answer. Then one day in school, while I was walking down the hallway, I saw a poster on the wall. It said, "Help orphans become self-reliant. Donate now." Below the message were pictures of children whose ages ranged from 2 to 18. They all looked hungry and sad. One girl caught my attention. She was around 6 years old and had a big smile. Her name was Maria, and her picture was next to a red circle with a heart. It said, "Maria needs your love today." Something inside of me snapped. I felt compelled to help Maria. I went straight to the principal's office to ask how I could sponsor her. Turns out she needed a foster family. I asked how much it would cost to take care of her. "We don't look at it that way, Robert," the principal responded. "For us, Maria doesn't have a price tag. What we need you to do is to provide her with a loving home, food, clothing, education. In other words, you have to be her new parents." I didn't hesitate. "I want to do it. I want to adopt her." The principal smiled and said, "You won't regret this, Robert." When I got home, I was so excited to tell my parents about Maria. I ran through the front door and shouted, "Mom, Dad, I have wonderful news. I met a little girl named Maria and I'd like to adopt her." My dad looked up from his newspaper and said, "Robert, we've talked about this. You can't adopt a child until you get married." "But Dad, this little girl needs me now. Can't I at least go see her and bring her here for the weekend?" "No, Robert, it's not possible." I tried to argue, but my dad wouldn't budge. He made it clear that adopting a child wasn't an option. After my parents went to bed, I snuck back out the front door and went back to the orphanage. I knocked on the principal's office and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but my parents won't allow me to adopt Maria." "Don't worry, Robert," the principal said. "There are other ways to help her. You can still be her hero." She took me to a separate room where several women were sitting. These ladies love Maria very much. They've created an adoption circle to raise money for her so she can have a better life. The principal turned to me and asked, "How much can you donate?" I was only 13 years old, and I didn't have a job. All I had was the money I earned from mowing lawns during summer vacation. I reached into my pocket and pulled out all the money I had saved. "Here you go," I said. "This is all I have." The following Saturday, I went back to the orphanage to check up on Maria. I was sad because I couldn't take her home, but I was happy that the donation circle had raised enough money to pay for her surgery. When I walked into her ward, I found her lying in bed with tubes attached to her arms. I was shocked. "What happened? Did her surgery go wrong?" I asked the nurse. "Oh no, Robert," she replied. "You're early. We just finished her surgery. She'll be fine. She was born with a hole in her heart, so we had to operate on her." I couldn't believe it. That was exactly the same condition my dad had. My dad's condition was so severe that he needed a heart transplant to stay alive. At the age of 10, he received a donor heart and lived until I was 17. That meant Maria and I shared something special. We both had donor hearts. I felt a strong connection to her, so I couldn't just stand by and watch as she grew up without a family. One night, I had a dream. In my dream, I heard a voice that sounded exactly like my dad's. He said, "Robert, it's time to fulfill your purpose. Go back to the orphanage and adopt Maria. Don't delay any longer." The next morning, I woke up feeling empowered. I went to the kitchen to talk to my parents. "Mom, Dad, I know you don't want me to adopt Maria, but I have to do it. It's my calling. I feel it in my heart." My mom and Dad looked at each other. They were silent for a moment. Then Dad spoke. "Are you sure, Robert? Are you willing to make sacrifices?" "Yes, Dad, I'm serious." Mom and Dad were surprised by how determined I was. "Well, then we won't stand in your way. You can adopt Maria, but remember, this is a big responsibility." I couldn't believe it. My parents finally agreed. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. I promise I won't disappoint you." I rushed over to the orphanage to tell Maria the good news. When she heard she'd be coming home with me, she threw her arms around my neck and said, "Thank you. Thank you, Robert." Looking into her eyes, I knew I was going to love her forever. Now, fast forward a few years. Maria and I are best friends. We talk about everything. I also fulfilled my purpose by adopting 49 other orphans, and although it hasn't been easy, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Every time I look at the smiling faces of the 50 children I call my own, I'm reminded of the power of one Bible verse. It completely changed my life and gave 50 other lives a brighter future. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed this story.